I won the lottery, but my mom called me jobless and told my brother to kick me out. The day I took back my house and my name. After winning 150 million and driving home, I heard my own mother planning how to throw me out. The afternoon sun slid across the windshield and lit the lottery ticket on the passenger seat like a joke. The universe decided to tell only to me. 150 million pesos. The number felt like a mirage. For 12 years, I had lived inside a spreadsheet, meeting targets, sleeping badly, swallowing pressure that pressed grooves into my bones. All for them, for my family. And now I was finally free. I was going to walk in, gather everyone in the living room, and announce my resignation. I would say I had saved enough to rest, to travel, to think about myself for once. The lottery would stay my secret for a while longer, the quiet ace in my sleeve. I wanted to see their faces for once, without that shine of calculation in their eyes. I parked half a block from the house I bought. Terracotta walls, a small garden I planted on Saturdays, a doormat that said home sweet home and never meant it. I reached for the knob, but voices drifted from the cracked window in the living room. My mother Rosa is syrupy and sharp at the same time. And with the bonus Marco got, we can finally start the kitchen expansion. My brother's voice came next, lazy and kingly. About time. Valeria wants a studio for her yoga stuff. Then, Valeria pretended to be patient. But what if she objects? You know how she is about money. I should have walked away. Instead, I stood there, my hand hovering while they discussed my salary as if it were a public fountain. Rosa whispered the sentence that hollowed me out. Do not worry about her, her boss called me. The company is cutting staff. They fired her this morning. A little gasp from Valeria. Are you sure? Completely, my mother said, and there was triumph in it. Now that she is jobless, she is a burden. Perfect timing. We tell her we need her room for the new baby. This house is for a family that matters. The ones who keep our last name. The ticket on my seat disappeared from my mind. The speech I practiced burned into smoke. I was not a daughter. I was an investment. And when the returns stop, you liquidate. I leaned against the wall, and my mind fled into the past. At 17, I lived on charcoal dust, linseed oil, and the ache of beauty. My room was a studio. Sketches on every panel, portraits that breathed. My art teacher, Mr. Delgado, once stood over a study of my father and said, Celia, you do not paint what you see, you paint what you feel. We built a portfolio. The acceptance letter from the National Institute of Fine Arts arrived with a 70% scholarship. I ran to Rosa with the envelope. She read it, folded it with the same patience she used to fold grocery bags, and placed it on the table. Fine arts, she said, tasting the words like vinegar. And what will you eat? Painting balloons at parties. Dreams do not pay the water bill. Your brother needs a business degree. He is the future. Study something useful. That night, while I was at school, she erased me. Sliced canvases, sketches ripped from the walls, my brushes gone. On the bed, a brochure for the engineering faculty. I did not cry. Shock is a dry place. Rosa put a hand on my shoulder and said, It is for your own good. Artists starve. One day, you will thank me. In the ruins of my studio, a painter died, and the obedient daughter was born. The engineer. The ATM. Years blurred into deadlines and planes and per diems. Marco drifted through majors, through schemes. I paid every tuition, every book, every little luxury Rosa praised as a sacrifice. I set a new goal. A house. A safe place for my father, Hector, to breathe and for Rosa to boast. I worked abroad, saved every peso, turned my 20s into a ledger. I signed for a 3-bedroom with a small yard. I threw a housewarming party. Rosa raised a glass and said, This is what we can achieve when we all work together, especially with the vision of my son Marco. I swallowed the humiliation. Then she toured guests past the master bedroom and announced it would be for Marco and Valeria. I could take the back room, the room by the laundry, the one whose window stared into a concrete wall. I nodded like a trained thing. Life became tight and polite. I left early and returned late, a ghost that left cash on the counter and asked for nothing. December came. I used my bonus to buy Rosa and Hector a week in Cancun. There someday, finally. On Christmas Eve, I handed them the envelope. Rosa's smile disappeared. Impractical, she said, sliding it under a pile of manuals. Your brother needs that money for a new machine. The tickets expired under coupons and warranty cards. I learned the texture of invisibility. Back at the door, listening to Rosa rehearse my eviction, something cold crystallized. I walked in. They were on the sofa pretending to watch TV. Marco did not move his feet from the table. Late and fired, he smirked. I stood in the middle of the room I bought and told him the company had cut staff. Rosa exhaled like I had personally failed her. And what do we do now? She asked. The mortgage does not pay itself. There are always options, Marco said. You must have messed up. Valeria announced they were expecting another baby, and Rosa moved in for the kill. With space so tight, the best thing is for you to give up your room. You can rent a small place. Things have changed. Give up my room, I repeated, tasting the absurdity. Give up the smallest room in a house I paid for so the crown prince can have a balcony. Rosa's face hardened. You did it under my roof and for our name. You administered what belongs to the family. Now the family needs it back. I looked to Hector, silent and folded into his chair. He whispered, Your mother is right. It is for the best. That was when grief burned into steel. I told him not to worry about the mortgage. As always, I would handle it. Marco laughed. With what money? Sell products door to door. I did not answer him. I left with only my wallet and phone, and I let the rest of my past remain like shed skin. I drove to the bar at the nicest hotel in the city and called the only person who ever saw me, my Uncle Tadeo, my father's brother, a former lawyer who left the firm for wood and quiet. I poured the story out. He listened, and then the lawyer woke up in his voice. Alma would have been Rosa in another life, he said. A manipulator plans before she pounces. Do not assume your name is safe on the deed. Tomorrow check the registry. Hire a shark. Say nothing to them. Let them think you are broken. Surprise is your only ally. The next day, I hired Licenciado Navarro, a real estate litigator whose reputation scared men who wore cufflinks with tiny diamonds. I handed him bank statements and copies of the deed. He nodded, sent his investigator to the property office, and called me that evening. Bad news, he said. A transfer request was filed 2 days ago with a power of attorney supposedly signed by you last year. The notary has a flexible history. We will prove it is forged. But this is no longer a family quarrel. This is a felony. Something in me clicked. If Rosa wanted war, she would get it on paper and in daylight. Navarro built the case like a fortress. A handwriting expert swore the signature was fake. 2 witnesses placed me out of the country on the date of the supposed signature. The notary's past smelled of ink and bribes. When the file was ready, Navarro sent a letter on heavy paper inviting Rosa, Hector, and Marco to a private dinner at Aurelia, the kind of restaurant where the bill makes people behave. The letter promised an amicable discussion to avoid pain. They confirmed within hours. I wore black silk and a new spine. We sat in a glass room above the city. They arrived 20 minutes late, dressed to duel. They ordered the most expensive dishes, like victors choosing spoils. Navarro entered as the mains arrived and laid a file on the table. Senora Rosa, he said calmly, you and your son filed a transfer request for the property on Avenida Jacaranda, using a power of attorney allegedly signed by my client. Here are the documents. Here is the expert analysis declaring the signature a crude forgery. Here are 2 sworn statements proving my client was abroad. This is not a misunderstanding. This is fraud. And the penal code sets 8 to 15 years. The oxygen left the room. Marco tried to bluster and failed. Hector shrank into the chair. Rosa whispered, It was a mistake. No, ma'am, Navarro said. It is a crime. I finally spoke. All my life, I followed your rules, I said. I studied what you told me to study. I worked where you told me to work. I gave you everything I earned. And the day you thought I was no longer useful, you put my suitcase by the door. One detail you did not know. I did not lose my job. I quit. Because that morning I won the national lottery. 150 million pesos. Enough to hire the best. Enough to buy information. I turned to Marco. Your import business is drowning. You owe a lot of money to a man they call El Lince. He needed cash. I bought your debt. Beginning tomorrow at 9, Marco, I am El Lince. You will pay every cent under a strict plan. Miss a payment and I will execute the collateral. Welcome to my reality. Rosa's face cracked, then shifted from rage to pleading. Daughter, please. I gave you life. How can you do this to us? You protected me by burning my paintings, I said. You protected me by spending my youth. You protected me by trying to steal my house. Navarro slid new papers across the table. My offer is more generous than you deserve, he said. Sign the nullification of the fraudulent transfer and a non-disclosure agreement, and I will not press criminal charges. Conditions. Vacate the house within 48 hours. Leave it empty and intact. Sign a restraining order. No contact of any kind. Marco will sign the debt plan. Any delay triggers seizure of assets. They signed. Rosa's hands shook. Hector did not look at me. Valeria dabbed at her eyes and watched the floor. I felt a thin mercy and let it pass. Mercy is a nice word for indecision, and I was done with that. They moved out under Navarro's team's supervision. He sent me a short video of empty rooms and a hollow echo. I sold the house without stepping inside. The money joined the rest, but it was not about money anymore. Marco paid on schedule, and monthly humiliation transmuted into a line item. Valeria left him. I heard it from Tadeo, who mailed me a wooden frame he carved with my initials. Inside that frame, in a little gallery I opened a year later, I hung a painting by a young artist who reminded me of the girl whose canvases were cut. I bought a sunlit building in the historic center and restored it room by room. I called it Arco de Luz. It is for people no one bets on. It is the studio I once lost, multiplied. Sometimes I lock the gallery at night and stand under the skylight and ask the question that keeps circling. Was I the villain? Then I remember the doormat that lay and the tickets that expired under manuals and the way my mother said the house was for the family that matters. I remember the girl who painted what she felt until someone decided feeling was a luxury. I am not the villain. I am the author who took the pen back.